Hello, virtual learners. Today we're going to discuss the 2021 KPREP test, and we're going to go over how you can prepare for this at home. If we're going to start by going to your Google Classroom page, and if you all look, you will have a link that says KPREP sample test link. You need to click on that and open up the link. You'll come to this TestNav Kentucky page. You do not need a username and password for this. You're going to go down to practice test because we're going to just do the practice test today. Click on practice test. Okay. If you notice when this loads, you will see that there is tutorials. If you want to explore the grade 6 through 12 online testing tutorial, you may do so. It just kind of goes over the tools that you'll have, but I'm going to do that in our mathematics tutorial as well. So feel free to play on this after this video to kind of get used to what you're doing. But for today, we're just going to go to the mathematics section. Now this is important. Make sure you scroll down to grade 7, not grade 3, because you don't want to take the 3rd grade practice test. Grade 7, and then there's 2 tests. One is accommodations, one is not. You're going to take the top. Start the top test. Okay, that says there are 2 sections. There are 4 questions in section 1 and 6 questions in section 2. We're going to start with the 4 questions in section 1. Just hit start, agree to the terms and conditions, hit continue, and start. Okay, so it's going to take us to the tutorial at first of the tools that we have. It says this is the user drop-down and accommodations tool. This will tell you if you have any accommodations. Most of you do not have accommodations, and if you do, you should know that at this point. These could be a calculator during the non-calculator part, extended time, quieter room, somebody to write for you. And those are all decided based on doctors and teacher and parent preferences. So if you don't know anything about that, that does not apply to you. So we're going to click next. Now you can go up here and look at the drop down. There's a magnifier. There's a reader mask. I think this is really cool. If you click on that, it shows that during the reading part, you can actually just segment some of the stuff. So you see one line at a time. That's very helpful for some like passages that you may have in language arts or science. So we also have a answer masking where it will mask the answers so you can solve it without having to see what the answers are. That, if that's something that you prefer to do, that's fine. I don't see that might be necessary, but it is totally fine if it helps with your anxiety. Okay, you have navigation arrows. These are forwards and backwards. That's how you get to the questions. A review button. And the review button is really cool because if you click on it, it will show you all the questions on the test, and it will show you how many you've answered, how many you've bookmarked, and out of the total questions. So it looks like we have all 4 questions. None of them have been answered. We don't have any bookmarks, but we can go to bookmark. That's our next thing. So it says bookmark button. So if we go up here and we're going to bookmark question 1, which is what we're on. And if we go down to review, it shows us that we have question 1 bookmarked. Now this may come in handy on the test where if you have 20 questions and you're not sure of one, you can bookmark it and then go ahead and finish the rest of the test. And then maybe come back to that question because you can actually click bookmark and it will take you to that question. So that is very handy if you are struggling on one part and you're not, just go ahead and answer the question, move forward so you don't waste time, and you can always go back and look at the bookmarked questions later. All right. And the tools. So we have the pointer, which is what we're on. We have a notepad that we'll be using later. You will get scrap paper and a pencil during the test, so you don't necessarily have to type everything down. But if you need the notepad, it's there. You have a answer eliminator, which means that let's say we know that the answer is, not negative. So we're going to mark out both negative answers. So we just have these 2 to choose from. that is what the answer eliminator is for. We have a straight edge, and we might use a straight edge to help solve a problem, maybe on a graph, help to see if something makes a line, a straight line. We have an inch ruler. The inch ruler is, you can move it around if you need to measure a vertical line. If you measure this line, it looks like it is 4 inches. Remember to start at the 0 part. Okay, that lines up to 4 inches. And we have a centimeter ruler, which does the same thing. So you can rotate it around as well and measure that line here. And it looks like our 4-inch line is 9 centimeters. So 4 inches apparently equals 9 centimeters. Okay. And if you notice on this, we do not have a calculator on this part of the test. There is no, this is the non-calculator part of the test. That means that you will not be able to use a calculator on the first section. Now, there is a calculator that's embedded into the computer for the second section, and I highly recommend that you learn how to use that, play with that calculator, so when you get to the test, you will not be lost on how to use a calculator. This is the first year that we can't actually use our own calculators. We have to use the one on the computer. Okay? All right, so now that we've covered all of this, let's look at some of these practice questions. The first question is about, let's see, it says, a fish is at a depth of negative 2.8 meters in a lake. The depth of the fish and the surface of the lake are represented on the number line. So I'm going to look here, and I see that the surface is at 0, which that's always 0. And the fish is in here between -2 and -3, which means, and it's closer to -3, which means that it's at -2.8. And it says that the fish swims 0.7 meters toward the surface of the lake. How much farther does the fish need to swim before it reaches the surface of the lake? Well, I would get my scrap paper and do some calculations, but since you can't see my scrap paper, I will use the notepad. So if this was my scrap paper, I would probably write down where that started, and I know the fish starts at -2.8, -2.8 meters, and it's going to swim toward the surface, which means it's swimming in a positive direction. So that means that's plus 0.7. And I know, because I have been doing 7th grade math, that if I have a negative plus a positive, that is technically subtracting. If you have 2 positive numbers, you add them together, and the answer is positive. If you have 2 negative numbers, you add them together, and the answer is going to be negative. If you have a positive and a negative, then you technically are, because they're coming from 2 different directions, you subtract them, and the answer will be negative if the number is further away from the 0 on the negative side, it will be positive if the biggest number is further away on the positive side. So this one, it looks like -2.8 has a greater absolute value than +7 or 0.7. So when we subtract these, -2.8 or 2.8 minus 0.7, we get 2.1. That is a negative answer. So I'm going to write -2.1. Okay. Now I look down here and I'm going to reread the question, and it says, how much further does the fish need to swim before it reaches the surface? So if the fish is hanging out at -2.1 meters, which is right about here, and it needs to swim up, that means that, and I can use my answer eliminator because there is 2 2.1s. So I know it's not 3.5. I know it's going to be either -2.1 or +2.1. And if it has to swim towards the surface, that means it's got to swim in a positive direction. So it looks like my answer would be C, that it needs to swim 2.1 meters up. Okay. So even though the fish is at -2.1, it has 2.1 meters to swim towards to get to the surface of the lake. Okay. So let's go to the next question. I feel confident in that question there. We're going to go to question 2. And this question says, Pete pumps water into an empty pool. After 8 minutes, there are 40 gallons of water in the pool. Use the coordinate plane provided to plot 2 points that can be used to represent the relationship between time, which is x, and the total amount of water, y, in the pool. So select the places on the coordinate plane to plot the points. Okay, so if I read this again, and I wish they had a highlighter. We don't have a highlighter. Oh wait, well I do on my video here. I might be able to do this. I have, after 8 minutes, there are 40 gallons of water. Okay, so I'm going to look and I say, well, 8 minutes is on my x-axis. So that's going to be here. And I can circle that. And 40 gallons is on my y-axis. So I can circle that. So I'm going to plot a point at 8:40. Okay, and all I have to do is click. Now, I go back to the question. After 8 minutes, there are 40 gallons of water. That point is plotted. It says plot 2 points. So I have to plot another point. So I can look through here and I can actually use my straight edge. I know that in order for a line to be proportional, it has to be straight and go through the origin. And the origin is 0, 0. So I am going to use my straight line to see if I can identify some more points. Now, this is right here. Keep moving it. It keeps. Make sure that it is lined up with where you need to be. Okay, it looks like that's pretty good. And I can see it looks like I have points 210 at 420 at 360 or 630, excuse me, and at 840. So I'm going to plot my second point at 420. So there you go, 420. But I can plot these. It looks like I could plot these anywhere I wanted to as long as it was on that line. It just says plot 2 points. Okay, and we will see. I can actually set that up and say if 40 divided by 8 is 5, so 20 divided by 4 is also 5. So I know that is consistent and constant and proportional because the y divided by the x equals the same thing. So those 2 points are on the same line and are proportional. Okay, so I feel like I've answered part A. Select the places on the coordinate plane to plot the points. So I don't need my line anymore. I can get rid of that. Okay, I've got my 2 points. It says, part B says, using your points from part A, answer these questions. What is the constant proportionality in terms of the context? Show your work or explain how you determine the answer. Well, I'm going to go click on this little box here, and I'm going to start with the formula so they know that I understand what constant proportionality is. So I'm going to say K is equal, and my equal sign is up here. And it gave me a box. Let's see, do I need that box? K is equal. Well, I'll just put my K in here. K. Let's do that. K. There. K. You have to play with this a little bit. Is equal to, and I want to do a fraction, to y over x. That is my constant. That is the formula for constant. And so now I'm going to go back over here and I'm going to use my equals again. And I'm going to make 2 fractions because I know that I have to make a proportion. And my first proportion is going to come from my point, my coordinate 840. So my y is 40. So that's what it says in the problem. My x is 8. And I know that the constant proportionality means wherever x equals 1. So I'm going to put 1 down here. Okay. Now I'm going to look at this and say, well, if 8 divided by 8 equals 1, then 40 divided by 8 equals 5. And my constant would be 5. So I was able to use those points. And let's see, if 1.5 is the point, let's see if I can even plot that. I go to 1, and I come over here, it's halfway up, and if I put a point, look at there, I can plot 1.5. I can actually point my constant on here. Okay, so you can plot either point, it doesn't matter. Right? Okay, so it says, what is the constant? I've got that, but it says in terms of the context. And so the context of this problem is based on total amount of water and time. So I'm going to say it takes 5 gallons of water every 1 minute. So for every, let's see, the pool, it is 5 gallons of water. May not even put it takes 5 gallons of water every 1 minute. There we go. Pete pumps water into the pool. So maybe we can put the pool takes, how's that? The pool takes 5 gallons of water every 1 minute. That would be context. Okay. All right. So we've answered the first question. Let's go to the second question. What is the total amount of water in gallons in the pool after 47 minutes? Show your work or explain how you determine the answer. Okay, so, well, let's set up a proportion. I'm going to use my constant. So let's do my equal sign. Equals, and put fractions in there. Fractions. So if I start with my constant, 5 gallons for every 1 minute. Okay, and the question says, what is the total amount of water in gallons in the pool after 47 minutes? So I have to decide, where does my 47 go? Does it go up here with 5 gallons or does it go down with 1 minute? And so it actually is going to be, if this is 1 minute, then and 47 minutes goes right beside it because we have to be consistent with our proportion. So that means that we have X here. So now this is just a solving for proportions. So we can multiply 5 times 47 divided by 1, or we just know 1 times 47 is 47. So 5 times 47 is, let's see, let's do this. If we go up to Notepad, you guys would have scrap paper, but I would type 47 times 5. Now, how my brain thinks about it is I say 40 times 5 is equal to 200, and 7 times 5 is equal to 35. So I know that 47 times 5 would be the 200 plus the 35, so that's 235. And you guys can write it out and multiply it like you normally do. You can do it in your head. You won't have a calculator on this part, so you will have to multiply it some way. So you have 235 gallons of water every 47 minutes. So we would come back down here because we have to explain our answer. So we write, the pool will have 235 gallons of water in 47 minutes. Okay. And I feel that that is a reasonable answer. We have answered both parts. It says enter your answers in your work or explanations in the space provided. We have explained ourselves by our proportions, showed our work, and then we have answered the question in sentence form. Okay, let's go to the next question. Looks like I need to erase my red marks. If I can, it's going to let me. Oh no. Okay. Let's try to erase it from here. So let me. Okay. We'll just go ahead and read it. It says, write an expression in the form of ax plus b, where a and b represent rational numbers. That is equivalent to 6 times 1/2 x plus 2 plus a fourth equals 18x minus 2. All right, so we don't have a calculator for this. And that ax plus b form is basically just distributive property and combining like terms. It's this fancy way to say that we're going to distribute the 6 to the 1/2 x, or the negative 1/2 x, distribute the 6 to the 2, and do the same thing to the 1/4. So I'm going to bring up my notepad, clear all my work off yet, and I'm going to show you guys, because I don't have a paper, and you would write this down on paper. 6 parentheses open, negative 1/2 x plus 2 plus 1/4 parentheses open, 18x minus 12. Okay. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to multiply the 6 to both the negative 1/2 x and to the 2. So we're going to say 6 times negative 1/2 x plus 6 times 2. I'm just putting them in parentheses and breaking them up. Now we're going to do the same thing with the fourth. So we're going to say 1/4 times 18x plus, and we can say plus, we can say minus 12, or we can just say plus negative 12, however you want to do it. I usually say plus, and then I say 1/4 times negative 12. It's going to do the same thing. So it's however you want to write that. Okay. So negative half of 6. Let's think about this. Half of 6 is 3. So negative half of 6 is negative 3. So negative 3x plus 6 times 2 is 12 plus, okay, 1/4 of 18. Well, let's see. That's just 1/4 times 18 is just, if you multiply 1/4 times 18/1, you get 18/4, right? 18/4, right? 18/4 x. But I'm going to turn this into a mixed number. So 18/4. Well, 16/4 is 4, right? And that would leave me 2 left over. So I can say 16/4, which is 4 and 2/4. 18/4 is 4 and 2/4. So let me write 4 and 2/4. When I write that, I realize, hey, 2/4 is actually simplified into 1/2. Now, if you don't know how to simplify that, that's okay. You could leave it at 2/4. They might take off a point or two, but it would still be better than nothing. Okay, plus, now I have 1/4 times 12. Well, a fourth of 12 is just 3, because 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 is 12. So a fourth of negative 12 is negative 3. So you have to just use your reasoning for some of this. Set up your multiplying fractions. You multiply straight across the top, multiply straight across the bottom. Okay. So now we combine our terms. So we have negative 3x. Oh, I forgot to put my x on 1/4. 4 and 1/2. Okay, so that's why I write this stuff down. All right, so negative 3x plus 4 halves x. So 4 halves minus 3 is just 1 and a half. 1 and 1/2 x. And then 12 plus negative 3 is 9. So our answer to this whole problem is going to be, and I've got to come over here and use my mixed number and put 1 and 1/2 plus 9. So that is your A, and your B is 1/2, and your 9 is your B. And that is how you answer question 3. Okay. That's the last question for the section. And we are going to say, what is the product of negative 2 1/4 and negative 0.6? Well, in order to multiply fractions, we have, or mixed numbers, we have to turn them into improper fractions. So let's do that very quickly. So I have negative 2 1/4. So if you remember, you multiply the denominator by the whole number and then add the numerator. So 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9. So we have 9 fourths, because we keep the bottom, and that's actually negative 9 fourths, times negative 1/6. Right? Now, I wish I had paper to show you guys, but if you can look up, if you need to, practice some multiplying fractions, but you just multiply across the top and you multiply across the bottom. So negative 9 times negative 1 is just positive 9. And 4 times 6 is 24. So if you get this, and that's what you put in there, that's fine. But you also need to think about simplification. So I can look and say, well, what would go into 9 and to 24? Is there anything? Well, let's think about my factors. 3 times 3 is 9, right? And 1 times 9 is 9. 24, 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8. So 3 will go into 9 and to 24. So let's divide this by 3/3, okay? So we're going to divide by 3/3. That's simplifying it. So 9 divided by 3 is 3. And 24 divided by 3 is 8. So our final answer in fraction form, I'm sorry, this is in the way, the old line, is going to be 3/8. Okay. So when you have this done, and I would practice multiplying fractions without a calculator and dividing, because you flip and multiply, you are going to, I guess, go to the next. And we are done with this section. So we are going to stop here and we will pick up the next section and do the next 6 questions that do have a calculator, so you can practice the calculator in the next video. Okay, hit submit. Yes. And we will start part B shortly. Thank you.